Good afternoon, guys. Welcome to the fourth episode of the Mind, Body and Goals podcast. Been really looking forward to this episode this week. I'm joined by two of some really good friends and people who I really look up to in the industry, Matt Beenham and Jamie Winters. How are we doing, boys?
All right, we're doing.
Thank you.
Good. We're in actually three different time zones, aren't we? I'm in England, and Matt's in Dubai, and James in Wigan. So
yeah, they have no concept of clocks. It's sundials. That's it, sundials.
The reason I've got these two gentlemen on today's podcast, they are two lads who I really look up to in the industry that I'm in, and I really value their beliefs in my industry, and I really value their work ethic as well. So first off, Matt, who is Matt Beenham? Please tell us.
Mathew Beenham. So I have been living and working in the UAE for coming up to 3 years now. Before that, I was working at Nuffield Health in Preston. I've been in the industry now for coming up to a decade, and I primarily work with general population looking to improve the way they look, feel, move, and perform.
Awesome, mate. So yeah, you're in Dubai. How long have you been in Dubai for?
3 years now, which is crazy because it seems like 5 minutes ago I was working in Preston. So yeah.
That is crazy, mate. And Jamie Winters. Who is Jamie Winters?
I've been doing PT for about the last 4 years, on and off for the last couple of months of the year or so. Mainly got into it when I was working at Wigan. I was the strength conditioner for the Warriors for 3 years, and I liked the idea of sort of being able to manage my own time, and I wanted to challenge myself with some PTing. Probably a different route to yourself. Obviously, I did commercial gyms. Obviously, you went in private gyms, and then I kind of like shifted my focus into a bit more teaching. So I was trying to get into a bit more lecturing roles, and then obviously using PT as experience and just learning from different people. And then now I kind of do it on a ad hoc basis with friends and close clients, and just trying to get a bit more into a teaching role.
Awesome. So Matt, can I ask you how you even got into training, please?
Like training?
Training yourself, yeah.
Oh God, you're taking me back now. I think for me, with regards to training, I played tennis when I was younger, and I was really skinny, weak. You could argue and say that I still am. But yeah, I wanted to improve my strength, be more resilient. And I think when I was 16 years old, I was getting like niggles in my shoulder, and I started going to the gym. Simple as that. That's how it started for me.
Awesome. And Jamie, how did it start for you, big man?
Playing rugby when I was about 15, 16. I wasn't the tallest. Still hasn't changed that much, obviously. As I'm sure we were going to get onto that later with Greg. I think when I was about 15, 16, I was playing for York and playing for Yorkshire, and one of my mates that I grew up in school with, who plays in Super League now, he had a gym in his garage. So just started training and just fell in love with it. Got a weight set when I was for Christmas when I was 16, and just couldn't leave the weights alone in my bedroom, just training twice a day, and just wanted to get massive. That was literally it. So
who was a mate that played for Super League?
Tom Lynham. He plays for Warrington now. So yeah.
Awesome. Where we're going to touch on now, I just want to find out, because what I love about kind of who we've got here is like we've got three different personal trainers, and I just want to find basically what all our passions are in our industry. So Matt, please can I start with you, mate?
Passions, okay, cool. So where it kind of started for me was I had a voluntary job at Fitness First at the time. So do you remember Preston North End when they had Fitness First there? So that's where it kind of started for me. So I managed to get a voluntary position working there when I was 18 at the time. And I remember working there, and there was a PT working there at the time called Jeremy Boyd, who's got a company called Resilience Fitness. I think he's still working in Wigan. But yeah, I remember watching him working with people, and it kind of, at the time, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was at university, I was trying different things. I was working at Fitness First, like on a voluntary basis. I really didn't know what my passion was at the time. And I remember watching this guy PT people and just the way that he kind of coached people. And it was just almost like the best PT service I've ever seen. And just speaking to him outside of his client sessions, finding out how he works with his clients. That kind of started the passion for me in terms of working in the fitness industry. And then from there, it's just kind of developed from there.
Oh, awesome, man. That's really good. That's really cool. Like, I think, like, especially like you're starting out, like you were saying, it's trying to find yourself where you are in the industry, isn't it? Like trying to find what makes you passionate about the job, because there's so many avenues to go down, isn't there?
100%. And on that note, I actually, after I finished my degree, I worked at a sports club for a season just as an internship. And at the time, I didn't like it. And you could argue and say, oh, it was a waste of time. But I see it from the other perspective. It made me realize that I didn't want to work in sport. And I was actually passionate about working with your average person, because you can get a lot more from those clients. Obviously, you're taking someone who's never trained before, doesn't know a thing about nutrition, and you can just do a lot more for those people.
Like when you've got an emotional attachment to the goal as well, like you look at the professional sports teams, they're getting it for free, aren't they? So they don't value the service, do they? So
Exactly.
Jamie, how did you find your passion down the industry, buddy?
I think it was more when we started at Ironman. I think when we trained at Ironman, the good old days, where the life was just about lifting weights and eating food and the competitions, and that was it. And I think when I was working at the St Thomas Sports Centre in Preston, there was obviously quite a lot of students, a lot of teachers, obviously the tutors, lecturers and stuff that were going in there, and just some of the stuff you used to see was like, Jesus Christ, what are these people doing? Like, they're going to hurt themselves. They've obviously had bad advice. And I thought at the time, I was like, well, you know what? I'm actually quite good at this. I'm all right. I know some stuff, and I've learned a lot off, yourself and quite a lot of the experienced bodybuilders and things at the gym. Obviously, albeit not a lot of great advice, but that's the journey that you take. And I wanted to, help people. People wanted to know how to get bigger. They wanted to lose a bit of weight. And I, was trying to give them the basics. And I just enjoyed it. I enjoyed the teaching. I enjoyed the camaraderie that you can make with somebody, and that rapport you can build with people, and liked the idea of trying to put something that's a complex idea into simple terms for them to understand. If you say like squatting technique, for example, or deadlifting, and just try to sort of debunk some of the myths about nutrition and food. So from then, it obviously stemmed into working with professional sports players. Obviously, at the time, for me, bodybuilding was everything. It was my life, just like yourself. You've been through that. But when I was working at Wigan, I couldn't be a professional bodybuilder. The way I sort of compared that was, or contrasted it, was sort of trying to work in a suit shop, but dressing from someone like Top Man. So they just didn't think there was sports, but it was a complete role reversal. And for me, I was like, well, I can't do this bodybuilding anymore, because this is my job. This is what's going to earn me money, not just a £5 trophy, that you're going to get after, spending a fortune on everything else. So yeah, that was, I enjoyed that. I worked, and the experiences I got with that, going to grand finals and things, was just unbelievable. And then I just thought, well, I could probably make a bit. There's not as much money in professional sport that everybody thinks there are, unless you're in football, top end. So yeah, I just decided to think I could make more money and control my own time, having my own business.
Awesome, man. And like Matt's touched there, he started his internship with a sports club. What sports club was it, by the way, mate?
Preston North End.
And obviously you had like a massive kind of job role given to you at Wigan. How did you find that in comparison to how Matt kind of found his experience there? Because you spent, how many years were you at Wigan?
3.
Awesome. And
3 years.
How were your experiences there, buddy?
Mixed. Like, I loved it. Like, I was very, very fortunate to have the best mentorship that anything could provide. My boss was just unbelievable. And even to this day, everything that he did for me was unbelievable. It was very, I think it sort of opens your eyes a little bit into, it's not all the glitz and the glam. and the training was not as sort of high tech or as so technical as you would expect, say, compared to maybe like rugby union, where obviously they've got more money to spend. They have those funds to, sort of get more equipment, split the backs and the forwards. Because if you look at rugby league, a lot of players do sometimes interchange positions, and it's very similar, running back 10, hitting in, and taking in drives and so on. And so for me, it was a bit of an eye-opener to thinking some of the training was just not what you expected. But then also you've got some players that were in that team that were worth easy couple $100,000. And it's like, if you injure one of them from trying to do some kettlebell swings or, some clean and jerks or some, power snatches or whatever, then you could be in trouble. And I kind of understood that, and it was a bit more of an experience. So we want to get them strong in games, but it was also the first role and protocol of S&C coach is injury prevention. So the last thing that you want them to do is, you want to get them strong in the off season and then maintain that strength in the season. So I learned a lot of it. I thought it was interesting, and I was lucky enough to be a head fitness coach for Swinton a couple of years afterwards, which was quite interesting too.
That's awesome, mate. And how was that role different to the role that you had at Wigan?
It's that was surreal, because in Wigan it was, my boss was he was perfectionist. He wanted it the right way. I was looking after the nutrition aspect. I was making sure that the players had the GPS. It was very, very sort of high end. Because obviously Wigan are probably the biggest club in English rugby league. So they had access to all of that. They had sponsorships, which we're very fortunate for. It was very routine. It was, breakfast on a morning, then it was weights for the backs, then it was weights for the forwards, and it was video time. Then I went to Swinton thinking, right, I'm going to take all this professionalism into sort of semi-professional rugby league, into the championship. It's just one grade down. And it was just difficult. Obviously, I'd come into that role sort of quarter of the way into the season. And I was wanting them to say, right, as soon as they've done the weights, I want you to all have a shake. I want you to all have a piece of fruit or a snack before we go outside and do a session just to fuel up. I want making sure that everybody's writing the names down for the rubs, getting the treatments. But it was very difficult because at Wigan, they want to be the best. And at Swinton, don't get me wrong, no knocking them. They obviously want to be good. But you also understand that they have jobs throughout the day. And to them, they're not fighting for money and food on the table. They've got that. It's more of a hobby. At that level, they enjoy playing the game. So they didn't always have the snacks and the discipline, and it was a bit of a challenge. But I enjoyed it. I got to see some amazing games. Got to go to travel and run things on my own. And obviously, they didn't have the facilities or the equipment because we had to use a commercial gym. So we were sharing a gym with just genuine everyday gym users. And it was difficult because obviously you don't want to hog the kit, whereas normally I'd be like, right, the backs are over there, forwards are over here. But a lot of the time you'd be like, oh, well, someone needs to get on that, right? Just change it and do that instead. So it's not as, again, glamorous as what people make out.
And just going to ask so I'm not sure if it was what I was getting to with Matt, but like I say, there's an accountability aspect where people are paying for a service, so they have to be emotionally invested. But when you was at Wigan, were the players always 100% professional? Were they always giving 100% to your program, so to speak?
Well, yeah, obviously, at the end of the day, we want to win trophies. So that was, I remember when I was with Sean, working with Sean Wayne and stuff, and he was brilliant. He was just a leader, and that is exactly what you want. Like, he was very tough, very to the point, but coming second wasn't acceptable. Winning was what we wanted. And, at the end of the day, if you're not there to win, what's the point? So yeah, it was good in that aspect. A lot of the lads, particularly the older ones, and I think the forwards, they were very competitive. They created that competitive environment. It was great because you'd have to, get the captain, like Sean Loughlin, with a couple of other players, and they're like, right, I'm going to bench more than you, or, come on, you're being soft and all this type of stuff. And, I'd get involved in the sessions, and it's good. I enjoyed that because it was a competitive banter that pushed everybody. So yeah, all of them were good for that. And even if they needed extras, they'd come up to me and they'd be like, listen, I'm struggling a bit with this. Do you mind if you can help me out with that? Or, for my shakes, I need some higher calories. Do you mind if we can adjust that? So yeah, they were good. Very good.
Awesome. So yeah, that's Matt and Jamie's backgrounds with their professional sports and their careers. What I really wanted to talk to you guys about was if there is any kind of up and coming or people that are interested in the industry that we're in, things that they actually don't teach us on our courses. Like Matt, if you can go first, is there anything like with your experience that this should have really been touched on in X amount of courses? Or
I think it's a case of what it actually takes to be successful. So you can look at it from two parts, like how do you gain clients, and then how do you get results with those clients? So there's some PTs that are really, really good at getting clients, but they can't get results. Similarly, you'll get a lot of maybe a lot of S&C style coaches who come in, really, really good at getting results, know exactly the science behind everything, but simply can't get clients. And it's marrying those two together and getting the balance right. And I guess in terms of actually gaining clients in the first place, obviously that isn't taught to you in the level 3. Now, a lot of people give shit to the level 3, but I actually think it's a good qualification in the sense of all the tools are there, so you can pick those tools when you need them. Obviously, it doesn't go too in depth, but for the basic PT, everything you need is in that level 3 for the most part. Now, in terms of actually getting clients, I guess in terms when you're talking about the level 3 qualification, it doesn't really talk to you about how it can be awkward, it can be difficult, it can be tiring. So you picture yourself Monday, 5 o'clock on a gym floor, busiest day of the week. You've got to go up to random people in the gym and offer them help, offer them advice. That's quite difficult. You know what I mean? It's not an easy thing to do, especially if you're maybe introverted. And I've seen loads of coaches in my time, like they just hide behind certain aspects of the gym, and they don't have the confidence to go up to random people and kind of speak to them. So I'd say like the impact of being able to help someone is really, really important for trying to generate clients. That's the most important thing for that. I think in terms of how to actually get results for clients, as I said, the tools are there in the level 3. How to pick the right tool for the right client in the right context, that is an art in its own right. So when you're doing the initial consultation with a client, you're essentially creating a client profile. So what's this client's blood pressure? Are they hypertensive? Are they normal tensive? What's this client's BMI? What's his client's range of motion on certain exercises? Can they squat? Can they do a hinge? And then you kind of putting all these pieces together, and you've got to pull certain aspects from the level 3 and maybe some things that aren't in the level 3 to formulate this training program that's going to work for this client. So I guess that's the kind of component that the level 3 doesn't teach you, or what the industry doesn't teach you, how to compile a training program that is 100% specific to that client.
And just touching on what you said about, going up to potential clients into the gym. Now, I was talking to someone about this yesterday, and I personally believe with that, obviously this is just my opinion, that are you trying to force a relationship that potentially isn't going to work? And they might need the help that you can give them, but if they're not instigating that initial relationship, then it potentially is going to be short-lived, and you just might not gel together. So, what would you kind of say to that?
I would look at it from this perspective. So, you interact with someone, you offer them advice. So, let's say they're doing some squats in the squat rack, and it's absolute dog shit. You go over, break it down for them, give them some advice, say bye. Fair enough. Now, nothing might ever happen with that. However, look at it from a long-term perspective. That person might then go into the changing rooms, have a conversation with someone who wasn't interested in having PT with myself. And that person might say, oh, I'm interested in having PT. Who would you recommend? And that person then says, oh, actually, I just spoke to Matt. Absolutely amazing PT. I wouldn't have PT myself right now because I can't afford it or I'm not into it. And it's looking at the bigger picture, I guess. And the amount of times I've helped someone in the past, and I don't know, 1 to 3 years later, they have come back to me and said, "Look, I'm ready for some sessions." So yeah, don't disregard that.
No, yeah, absolutely. Like I think I've done that without even realizing you've even said that. Just like our time isn't worth money 100% of the time. So just even going up and just saying, "Oh, do you know what? I think you're doing this. If you just do this in a certain way, you'll feel it a little bit more." And I think they take that home more than we actually realize it. Don't they? Like they'll digest that themselves. And Jamie, so if there's anything like you have struggled with in the industry that you feel like the courses haven't like touched on, is there anything that for you, mate?
Well, I mean, going back to what Matt said, I think that's a massive valid point, because I know for a fact that like I've taught quite a lot of these courses myself, the level 3 and stuff, and I've even been on, when I was signed up for DW, you have to have like a 2-day business course where they sort of try and help you get clients and so on. And it is good when you can go and you can help someone, especially if you're a familiar face. I think if you're there all the time, people know who you are without even having to speak to them. Because if you're in there, you're busy, you're working, you're doing your craft, everyone's going to take note. That's always going to happen. But like some of the advice that people are getting told these days is, I even heard it from, from firsthand from when I was having one of these sort of like business days, was that go up to someone, if they're doing some bicep curls or they're doing exercise, and this is genuine honesty, that they said go up to them, even if they're doing it right, tell them that they're doing it wrong, or tell them that they're doing something wrong, just so that you can create that chat with them, right? That you can sort of like get that icebreaker in there, which I didn't agree with that. I think it's ridiculous. I think that if someone has got the form wrong, then 100%, maybe help them out a little bit. Don't try and make them put them on the spot, because I think sometimes some people don't like the fact that you're telling me to do it right. But even if you say, look, it's looking good, maybe if you try this is going to help. But I think a lot of the time, if you're a PT and you're starting and you're trying to get clients, now obviously they're not going to know who you are, but I think for me, the way I always approached it was like, listen, if I go and talk to someone in that gym and trying to have that conversation, they're automatically going to think he wants my money. That's the way I look at it. Is if you go talk to someone on a treadmill that you've never spoke to before and you're a PT, they're immediately going to think, right, well, he obviously wants to try and get me as a client, there's nothing wrong with that, because at the end of the day, you're trying to run a business. However, you can always offer and say, listen, you know what? I'm offering some half an hour free tasters. If there's anything that you're unsure about in either nutrition, form, technique, here's my business card, absolutely get in touch with me. Or if there's something you'd like to talk about now, we could easily, go through some of those exercises. And I just thought that was sort of like a cut the crap type thing, than creating all these different types of scripted plans and stuff. But yeah, I think one of the main things from when I was doing the courses was planning, programming. Like, it's essential. It's the most important. If you don't have a plan, then there is no progress. You can't monitor it or assess it. So yeah, there was the amount of people I spoke to, because obviously you do, I think when you do a coursework or you do some sort of profile case study, you've got to do a program in that. But there's no sort of lengthy, like, right, today for the next 3 hours, we're going to talk about programming and how we're going to implement resistance profiling, cardiovascular efforts and things like that, which that needs to go into massive detail, because they just sort of cover it like, there's your case study, do a training program, and then that's it. But they don't talk about the order and the structure of your programming, which is key. You can't just sort of like, I'd seen some people try to do a program where they'd start with glute kickbacks and then they finish with box squats. And you're like, well, you need, your resistance profile needs to be built on foundations within like a pyramid. Your basis is your compound lifting, the technique, and then obviously work your way up into isolation movements, which they don't understand that, and it's difficult.
So, like, what you said there could be, like, to the general population, could be quite overwhelming, couldn't it? So,
yeah,
for us as PTs, it's just like you're saying, like, not essentially simpling it down, but like breaking it down as where they find the motivation to do so. Well, sorry, not motivation, but where they find that spark, and just having that external motivation to do these exercises. Where if you was to say it in those terms you just said, could be quite overwhelming, couldn't it?
But how can you break that down layman's terms, because that's a skill in itself. So even if you go through those complexities of, you've got your mesocycles, your microcycles, your mesocycles, and all this, your macrocycles, if you spend a bit of time on that course understanding those, and then how to actually get into your microcycles and say, right, we're going to do these for X amount of weeks before we rotate these movements, rather than just say, right, we're going to do this week, or we're going to do this. And then if you can put that into layman's terms to your client, then they're going to understand that, they're going to learn. And for me, I think like the key role as a personal trainer is education. I think if someone's paying you money for I wouldn't go to an accountant and then just say, right, do my books for me, and then not ask questions. That's just daft. I don't see the point in that. If you're paying money, you want to understand. So for me, whilst I'm trying to coach, I'm trying to educate, and I think that's the key to this, because then they could eventually go down their own path at some point, and they've invested.
Yeah, that is it's the biggest thing, isn't it? Like when a client goes off on their own and they're completely, when they first started with you, like a very nervous wreck, if you will, and then like say a year down the line, they're comfortable to fly the nest, and they're completely self-sustainable. And I don't think there's a bigger compliment than that.
No.
Like I think some coaches, they'll try and kind of keep a client on as long as they can, and when really it's already in a position where it's self-sustainable. Like as long as the program's good. And for me, what I don't think courses have taught me, but is like people skills, having the people skills, and being your own person, like just like not trying to kind of like fit into a certain category. And I personally believe you bring you attract, is what I'm trying to say. You attract the clients that you want to bring on if you're just your own person and you're more wholesome. But I think, people skills are a massive one. How are you guys with people skills?
Me first.
Yeah, you go.
I think for me it was something that kind of developed over time. So I started out as a voluntary position as a fitness coach. Then I became a fitness coach. I was a fitness coach for 5 years. So I think the great thing about being a fitness coach. So at the time I worked for Virgin Active. So there was a difference between the PTs and the fitness coaches. The fitness coaches wore red t-shirts. The PTs wore black t-shirts. So when I went to go speak to a member, there was no maybe obligation from the member to maybe buy PT services from me. You know what I mean? So it was more of an authentic conversation. So I think it's just being yourself, isn't it? You know what I mean? Ultimately. And I think having the opportunity to be a fitness coach and chat to members, chat to all different kinds of people across all walks of life, you just kind of hone those people skills over time. I think I was quite lucky in that I was able to be a fitness coach before being a PT. That opportunity is very, very rare now. Not many gyms offer that. It's usually just PTs and that's it. You see lifestyle fitness, you see all the budget gyms. There's no fitness coaches anymore. It's just basically PTs and cleaners and managers. That's it.
Yeah. What about you, Jamie?
Well, I think that's important. Like what Matt said, I think like I've been unlucky enough. I think, well, in a sense that the gyms that I worked at, it was kind of like there was no guidance. So for me, it was like, right, chuck in the deep end and just crack on. And you have to make your own mistakes. So for me, I think the hardest bit, and I think something we can touch on later, is business. I think just business itself is massively overlooked when it comes to doing your PT courses. But I wish I would have had a model like Matt's, because you have to work your way up and you learn. So like he was fortunate enough to learn from, Matt, you were fortunate to learn from Matt Martin, who's brilliant, knows a hell of a lot, really nice guy. And, he's good with people as well. And he's obviously worked his way up to where he's now and very successful. And I kind of had to make my own mistakes. And I think that's a great way to learn. But it's sometimes, obviously, you can miss out on a lot from the start, or you can take a bit longer to get yourself what you think is established. But the way I tried to understand it at my job, it was just that I think it's a privilege is the job. Like, it's not a job. It's a privilege. If you go back 30, 40 years ago, the idea of being in a gym, earning money, training people, they're like, nah, get out, get lost. But the fact that we can actually go to the gym and talk to people, make new friends, and they pay you to train them is just ridiculous. Like, people don't realize how lucky they actually are. So trying to make the most of that, and I think when you first start, you sort of have this preconceived idea of what you think, oh, I'm going to go in with dead robotic, I'm going to be like this, and try and put a face on. But over time, people want to see character. If you actually have a decent, character and they have a bit of a laugh with you, people enjoy that and invest in it. So I think over time, you come up normally.
I come back and see you the next week and know what you've done that week. They're invested in you, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's all the same though, isn't it? I remember you saying to Danny, like, people invest in you as a person. Obviously, when I was in Preston, I used to go get my haircut from Danny, and like, I paid Danny to sit down and just have a chat, or sometimes have no chat at all. And it was just, I paid for him. You know what I mean? I didn't pay for the haircut, and that's why I kept going back.
That's bad business.
So something I was going to ask you then, James. But like you were saying just then, Matt, I think that is a part of our industry that we need to bring back, because that is, in a sense, is, even though you have got the qualification, so to speak, that is almost like an apprenticeship, isn't it? Where you can make those mistakes and get away with it. And I think the knowledge that you learn there, the experience that you get there, is invaluable. You can't pay for that. And I think that's part of our industry that we should definitely get back.
No, 100%. I think a big problem now is you've got essentially coaches who've done the level 3, or maybe haven't done the level 3. They'll bypass the whole learning part, so the fitness coach part or the internship part. They'll go straight into PT, maybe not in a gym, or maybe in a gym, and they'll be selling online programs, and they'll miss that whole kind of layer where you're in the deep end, working with people, working your ass off, cleaning treadmills, being at the gym at 6 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. And you know what I mean? They're just putting pictures of their ass on Instagram and getting clients. Crazy.
I think that, Matt, what you were touching on then, I think when you go through that process of being an apprenticeship type thing, where you clean the treadmills, you're putting the weights away, you're walking around doing your classes, that builds, in my opinion, like an appreciation for the job itself. I think when you get people like obviously exercise for less is pretty much gone now, so it doesn't really matter. So they took people on that were level 2 qualified. So they took people that would be a level 2 qualified to be a full-time PT. Now, and at one point, I think when I started, I think we ended up having like 18 personal trainers at once, right? Which is it's just mad. Like, you can't look after your PTs because they're supposed to, if you've got great PTs in your gym, other people are going to come to your gym. Like, that's going to attract members. So, but if you spend the time at the bottom, you're cleaning, you're grafting, you're learning your craft, when you start to build a business, you appreciate it a lot more and you put a lot more professional time into that. Rather than if you just get a level 2 and think, start it right, go on PT, and think, oh, look at that, I'm earning 400 quid. No, well, that's for a block. That's not 400 quid in a week. That lasts over X amount. So I think, that for me, and it kind of obviously resonates in how you are as a PT right now, isn't it? I think you can't go wrong. And Andy as well, was he the same as you, Andy Smith?
So yeah, I took over Andy Smith's job. So Andy Smith worked at Virgin before me. He moved to Edinburgh to do his masters, and I took his job. Small world.
But he's fantastic. He's brilliant, and the content that he puts out today, and he works his ass off, and he will have started from the bottom and get to where he is now. And he massively appreciates. He's got his own gym. He's had his own studio. So to him, it's his life. But he's sort of earn the work ethic from starting at the bottom, and I think that's important.
I think he's like the front line, isn't he, of bringing the gyms back open in Scotland? Like, he's forefront, isn't he? So
like the William Wallace of gyms.
Yeah.
So to you, Matt, what makes a good coach / personal trainer?
I think the key thing really is someone who listens, takes into account the big picture. I think will be where I start with this. So it's not just about the training. It's not just about the nutrition. It's about the overall, I hate to use this word, but holistic approach. So sleep, stress management, nutrition, digestion, all this it all feeds together. So it's understanding that and trying to put a program together that is specific to that client. If you've got a client who's working 70 hours a week and you're giving them Milo Sarchev giant sets, they're going to be absolutely crushing to the ground in a couple of weeks, aren't they? Let's face it. Whereas if you understand this client and that they've only got so much recovery capacity, you need to spend your time better elsewhere. So obviously the training is really important in terms of providing that stimulus, but then it's also putting some importance into, as I said, value into sleep, stress management, like walking, all this, because it all feeds in together. If you've got someone who is working 70 hours a week, if they're not sleeping properly, they're more likely to be hungry, they're more likely to be overeating, they're more likely to be stressed. They all feed together, and it's understanding this and putting together a program that is specific to that individual. That's the important thing, I guess.
Absolutely. And for you, Jamie?
I don't want to put anything extra. I think what Matt said is probably spot on. You know what I mean? And everyone who takes it a bit of everything into account. And I think from learning from my own mistakes is not trying to think that everyone wants to bodybuild. Like when I first started, it's not all about that. It's, at the end of the day, what can we do to get results and that makes it fun and keeps our retention rate? But I think the main one is learning from your mistakes. Everyone's human. And I think at the end of the day, like, you're going to start and there's going to be mistakes that you make as soon as you start with different clients. And I know for a fact that when I first started, I had a client who was 20 odd stone, and I just thought, because I'd trained since I was 16, I just thought, well, everyone can do dumbbell presses, everyone can do it. So I was like, right, okay, no worries, done a bit of a, assessing, and seeing how they move and how they look. Thought, right, let's get on the dumbbell presses, just getting him to start off with some 10, 12 kilo dumbbells. He hadn't done the movement pattern before, ever. So soon he's got with the dumbbells, so unstable in his shoulders, and he sort of cracked himself in the head with a dumbbell. And I thought, crap, I've killed him. Like, then that's just ignorance from me, thinking that everybody can do it, and they can't. But then you learn from that. And I think if you're a PT, you can just learn from your mistakes, and rather than think, no, I'm right, they just can't be bothered. Everyone's different, and I think that's the key. I think if you can do everything that Matt said, but learn from your mistakes, that's what's going to make you a brilliant PT.
I think as well, on top of that, it's almost like being humble as well. And I think this is part of the reason why people say the level 3 PT qualification is shit, because you go into level 3 PT qualification with your own ideas about what training should be. You do your level 3, you completely ignore it. You then go take, Karen from HR who's never trained in her life. Oh, let's go do 5 sets of 5 squat, bench, and deadlift. I say that because I used to do that. One, you haven't looked at her blood pressure. You haven't realised that she's stage 3 hypertensive. That's going to make things a lot worse by just doing 5 sets of 5 and squat, bench, and deadlift. You know what I mean? I think if you have some humility from the start, which unfortunately you don't get until you've worked in the industry for a while, like, it's crazy.
So, going back to that, I remember you had a client, Matt, I've forgotten his name, but did he have a car crash or something? And you literally built him up with single set exercises, and you literally just built him up from the bottom. I can't remember. Oh
yeah. So basically, he was running across America, and he was hit by a truck coming towards him, and he was in bits. He was an absolute bit. So it was literally starting from absolute scratch, just like isometrics, learn how to contract a muscle again, and it's crazy.
well, I saw that. Sorry. I saw that. Sorry, Max. Carry on.
You're right, mate. Go on.
I saw that what you did, Matt, and I had a client who had I can't remember what the condition's called now. If it's ME, is that where you get like really tired? You're exhausted all the time. I can't remember which one it is. No, well, I had got a client had that, but I think she had ME, and I think that's what it was. But she was sleeping for like nearly 20 hours a day, 15, 16 plus hours a day, obviously. So when she wanted, obviously she was struggling with her weight. So when she come to me, I thought, well, the last thing she needs here is me absolutely blasting her with exercises. It's just going to make it worse. So obviously I was lucky enough to see what Matt was doing with your client, and I started her with 1 set per exercise. Just got the movement on body weight, and then literally just did 1 set exercises and just literally progressed it from there. And just over half an hour, I refused to train her for an hour because I just didn't see the point. I just think it was excessive to what her conditions were giving. And it seemed to help for a while. Obviously, the nutritional aspect was a separate issue, but I think being able to learn from other teams and what they're doing, that's a really good thing to do as well. So I couldn't have just blasted her with weights and get her on the treadmill and we're going to do 100,000 burpees. It's not going to work.
Yeah. And I think as well is like detaching your own kind of values and passions in the gym and finding what your clients like. So there might be 100 more efficient and effective exercises that you could choose your client to do to get her to or where she wants to be. But if they're not going to find, like, if they're not getting that spark from that, then they're going to end up hating training, aren't they? So there might be more efficient ways to get there, but it's finding what like clicks for your client at the same time, isn't it? Even if you don't really necessarily not agree with it, but there are more effective exercises. But it's just kind of like detaching your own values and from your client's values, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you want them to have fun, don't you? Like, I was like, obviously at DW, I've seen quite a few PTs come and go, and even exercise for lesson. I think some of we always used to get free sessions, so like people would sign up to the gym, then you could give them like 2 free half-an-hour sessions. And sometimes, like you got some people that they just want to do maybe like a bit of boxing, or they just want to do some like maybe a bit like CrossFit type work. Well, then you might get a PT saying, "No, we're going to do some weights today. We need to do this." They're like, "Yeah, but we don't want to do weights. Like we just want to do." And that's the line, isn't it? I think there's such a focus on progress pictures for the PT to put on their Instagram page to get the results, to get more clients in. Well, in actual fact, like they're paying you money. Listen to them. What do they want to do? And if they want to do boxing, you're going to get the same benefit. You're still losing calories. You're still burning. You're still training. But it's a mental aspect for them. I think as PTs, we don't realise that if your client's been working from 8 a.m. till 5, sat down at a desk all day while you've been in a gym, and they just want a bit of a release, if you're just saying, right, we're going to do this, when they want to do something a bit different, you need to sort of provide that service, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to ask now, guys, what are your looks on the industry now? How do you feel about the industry and where it's going? Matt, can I start with you, please, buddy?
Yeah, I think there's a big drive now on body composition, which, don't get me wrong, I am all for the right person in the right context and the right circumstance. But I guess you need to understand what that client needs at the start to tailor that actual service for them. So if you've got someone who has never trained before, has poor movement, doesn't understand what nutrition is, as I said, the health metrics are all over the place, and you're getting them in on day one, absolutely blasting them. Like there's all these kind of like transformation boot camps or transformation camps or whatever you want to call them, which, don't get me wrong, like most people need to lose some weight, but I guess that the key thing is losing the weight and then keeping it off. And unfortunately, these kind of transformation places never show you the after. So I think a concept called prep into prep, which is by a guy called Luke Lehman from Muscle Nerds, is something that really resonated well with me, and something that I really try and emphasize with my clients now. So in the initial kind of 4 to 8 weeks, let's say you've got someone who is overweight, they probably are going to be hypertensive, right? So how can we fix this problem? How can we teach someone some good nutrition habits? How can we get someone moving well before we then go into a weight loss phase? Now, don't get me wrong, you might find that in the first 4 to 8 weeks, just a few changes, they start losing weight. Great, fantastic. But I feel like just getting someone in on week 1, destroying them with movements that, one, they can't control properly. I see these videos all the fucking time on Instagram, just really bad exercise choices for these people, and they look absolute crap. Body's moving all over the place. There's no control. It's all about reps as opposed to quality. And it's like, well, how about we build a foundation first? Maybe we'll get some weight loss with that. If you coach someone right, you probably will do. And then at the end of this, when they have lost the weight, it's more likely to be off forever, or at least for the most part. I mean, let's face it, diets aren't meant to be sustainable. You're meant to do the diet, It's the lifestyle and kind of training, the nutrition component. That's the bit that's meant to be there forever. That's the sustainable bit. The actual calorie deficit is only there for short term, isn't it, or long term for some people. But yeah, so I guess for me it would be the heavy emphasis on body composition and transformation. That would be me.
Mate, that's very powerful what you just said then.
Without pre-screening people first is what I would say. Sorry.
No, it's very powerful what you just said then, because like we're saying, and I think that's from like just these new people who are coming into, or people who have been in for a long time, coming in and just thinking they've got all this that they can do to get this person in this awesome shape that will get them more clients. But if that's going to leave that client in a worse position in 6 weeks' time, in 6 weeks after the 6 weeks that you've just done with them, then you've just wasted their money and wasted your time and wasted their time, and they've not got any better quality of life from it. Jamie, what are your outlooks on the industry right now?
We got long enough.
We got
I think that the main thing with me is the greedy. It's, again, I've taught quite a lot of these courses for quite a few years, and the amount of people who I've seen that were accountants, lawyers, very, very successful, in academic terms with good jobs. Now, obviously, I'm not just going to sit here and say, why are you not being a lawyer accountant? I understand that they have downsides to their roles. However, the amount of people that just expect that by being a PT, they're going to make 30 to 50 grand a year straight away is just perplexes me. Like, they don't understand that the graft and the amount of work and time that you have put in, it's not 5 or 6 clients a day. It's not 5 or 6 hours of work. It's on top of that, it's the getting texts at 10 o'clock at night, getting texts on a weekend, having to work early on a weekend. You don't see the other side of the planning. Yeah, Max, I know that you've been up till 11 o'clock at night when you first started, doing your planning, getting the books done, all those different things. And especially with Instagram, it's all about selling money. And I try to put the before and after pictures on with Instagram, but for me, I thought that was a bit of an invasion of privacy. Personally, that's just my personal, opinion. That if I've had some clients that weren't confident in themselves, as I think I let them do that themselves. If they feel like they've done happy and they're pleased with their progress, and then they can put a before and after picture, which is, absolutely, why shouldn't you? If you're confident with how you're looking and you're pleased and you've made an achievement, because it is, then yeah, absolutely. But I kind of felt cheeky asking my clients, saying, would you mind if I could do a before and after picture? Because that's for me, it was a bit of an invasion of privacy to put it all over my social media for, the couple of followers that I've probably got on my Instagram account. So for me, it was just all that money grabbing. And again, I call them cowboys. We've got them here in Wigan. We've got everybody PT in Wigan, or every PT in England is somehow in bloody Wigan with their own gym or studio. And they're doing these 10-week transformation challenges now because they're 10 quid. If someone says to you, I did this 10-week challenge, £10 a week, and you get 3 classes and you get a diet plan, that's brilliant. Well, he's 30 quid an hour, and he's like, well, am I getting out of that as much? But if you get 100 people sign up to them, I know a couple of them have had like hundreds of people, 100 people signing up for these 10-week challenges. And when they start putting all over their Instagram page, they get, look at all these people that have, success stories and stuff. But you're probably only going to get 20 to 30 people that actually stuck to it all the way through the 10 weeks. Then you've got 70% of people that either couldn't hack it because all the diets are the same, or there's no nutritional value in a lot of it. The head can't stick with the head goes, or they don't make that much of a progress because obviously they've got other underlying health issues that need to be sort of, discussed. And then when they go on holiday, they just pile it all back on, don't they? And then it's like, well, we're going to do another 10-week challenge. Oh, I need to get back on that. And this is exactly what Matt said. There's no sort of, you can't stick in a calorific deficit forever. You need to maintain it. And it's like, well, how can we lose a little bit of weight, but then improve or increase our calorific ceiling so that we can eat more, but maintain or build muscle tissue, rather than, if you're on these silly diets where your calories are like 1,000, and then, we've done it, Marcus, when we were dieting. I would fish and broccoli for 8 weeks, doing 7 hours of cardio a day. I felt like Forrest Gump, just running around that thing for like hours. And it was just like, people used to talk to me and I'm just like, I'm running.
Do you remember the day? And apologies if I'm going to say this right.
Oh, God.
I think So this is how bad times got. That you was working at a coffee chain at the time,
I
and
was Odeon, yeah.
you had to throw this cake away because it hadn't been eaten in time. And I think you cried. Did you cry? I think
that's not. I didn't. I think I was serving someone a piece of cake.
Right, that's right. Yeah.
And I just. I was like, wanted to just lick it, but I couldn't, and it was just torture. It was just, but that's at the extreme end. And I think when we went through that, we expected all our clients to do the same, and that isn't right. You know, it's a complete extreme end.
And I think I put a post up the other day about the Weight Watchers and Slimming World, and we have big classes like you were saying in Wigan, within Preston, that are just going on volume of numbers of people, and giving them the same sheets, giving them the same, whether or not their kind of personal interest in training is relevant. Like they're just going to do the same training, stick to the same food that the 50 kg lady's on, and he's 120 kilos. But you're creating awful habits and potentially eating disorders, and like you're just going to get people banging their head against the wall saying, "I cannot lose weight because I cannot stick to this." Where it's like, no, that is an awful way of trying to lose weight.
Yeah, I've seen it firsthand. You know, a lot of people sign up to these challenges, and then for some, I've seen it where there was a woman who was making fantastic progress. She'd lost 3 stone already, done it herself, tracking her food, tracking her calories, tracking her weights, and she loved it. She loved the gym, and it was a great thing to see that someone had found that, and it is good because it keeps you happy, it keeps you in a good space, gives you routine, gives you discipline. But then she jumped onto one of these diet plans, and she's like, "I'm really struggling here. Like, I feel like I want to crave a Domino's and stuff." And I was like, "Right, well, how long have you been on the diet?" And she went like a week and a half. And I was like, "Jesus Christ!" I was like, "Well, why have you changed? What you were doing was already fine. Just because a PT is throwing out these transformation plans doesn't mean that they're going to work. Like, food is food at the end of the day. Like, just so you go to one PT, he's going to give you this diet plan because that one's got broccoli in it, that one's got asparagus. Doesn't mean that they're going to work any different. It's, so it's like you said, being able to do it healthily in the right way. If she's already losing weight and she's enjoying the food, then why change it? I don't see the point in that.
I think it's like when you try to tell clients, "Oh, but it's working for them," and it's, "Well, have you seen this? It's working for them." It's like, well, everything. You tell me something that doesn't have a success rate, that might be a 2% success rate or a 3% success rate. When you're talking about volume, that's a lot of people in comparison. But you've got to, like you were saying before, how many people have actually kind of stopped within this 12-week period and just stopped at 3-week or stopped at the 4-week station because they couldn't hack it. But I think everything has a success rate. You're just seeing the good side of it. You're not seeing everything. And like we were saying before, I would love to see the 6 weeks after the 6-week transformation and see if everyone's in the same position, because I'd love for them to be. And like we were saying before, there'll be a lot of people. There'll be some people that really enjoy it and really stick to it. But it's like everything has a success rate, isn't it? Like everything.
I just want to add to that and say, I think there are certain scenarios where it is okay. So, for example, if you've got a client who's coming to you and she's getting married in 8 weeks, as long as you've been 100% transparent and said, right, what I'm getting you to do right now, you're probably not going to be able to sustain it, but it will get you towards your goals because you want to look good for your wedding photos. As long as you said that, and as long as you've made it clear and you've took someone through it in a safe manner, I don't see a problem with that. But there is no disclaimer.
They're okay at the same time. They're aware that they're going to be potentially putting on weight in about 3 or 4 weeks' time. But
I think the difference with what you're saying, Matt, though, is that's one-to-one, right? So that's personalised. And you're saying, right, for this 8-week plan, we're going to start at X amount of calories. We're going to slowly bring them down. We're going to increase your training volume. We're going to work on these movements, and we're going to increase your cardio on these weeks. But when you've got 100 people all on the same diet, 1,500 calories, regardless if it's a 50-year-old, 110 kilo male, or she's 18 and she weighs 55, they're doing the exact same classes. They're not checking the form. They're not doing those things. They're all on the same calories. And you don't even know like inflammation issues. You don't even look at what type of foods that person can digest well or can't digest well. So the 8-week block of plan of changing is fantastic, because at the end of the day, you change your training programs. Everyone does. You change your training blocks once you've done a 12 16-week block. And I feel that nutrition is exactly the same. I think that if you can play around with carb back cycling, particularly with women on their, around their cycles, on a monthly cycle, you might have a sort of a higher carb percentage for 2 weeks before the period, and then maybe a higher fat, after. So you're playing around with that, and to what they feel comfortable with is completely fine. But when you're just giving everyone the generic same stuff and they're making 10 grand off it, that's just daylight robbery, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, what I think of the industry at the minute is there's far too much ego. Right? There's not enough people. There's not enough PTs helping other PTs out. They'd sooner stab them in the back or try and see them not do very well, rather than like, well, what do you need help with? Let's put you in a better position. And I think that's underconfidence in themselves. But I think, what do you guys think about that? Like, do you think there's too much ego in the industry?
I guess I would say that there is, yeah. But then I guess that's kind of part of it, though, isn't it? I guess you're getting people who have been tracking the food for 5 years and doing bodybuilding shows and doing X number of shows. I guess that comes with a personality. I guess it's being humble and understanding that you're not going to get those same expectations from your Gen Pop client. But yeah, I guess it's a difficult one to kind of get rid of in the industry, I guess.
Yeah. And what about you, Jamie?
I think a lot of it comes, if you're confident in your own ability to do your job well with your clients, you know that you've got good rapport with your clients, you're being honest, you're being upfront, and you've got a plan. I don't see no reason to have a massive ego in it, because like I've worked with some PTs who say specialised in boxing, whereas I can't fight, I don't fight. So for me, I was like, well, if you want to do boxing, that's fine. I might as well pass you on to someone who can box. That's what you want to do, then that's okay. Just because you're losing 30 quid that week, at the end of the day, like it does perplex me again with the ego thing, because it does happen. I'm not going to say it doesn't, because I think it happens with less established PTs that are coming straight into it. I think if you've got, such like yourself or, Marcus and Matt, and I know plenty of other PTs that are absolutely fantastic, and, they'd be more than happy to help another PT out if they're struggling with certain aspects of business. They're not worried that they're going to lose clients, because they're already great PTs. And when we were talking about before is that, the idea and the purpose of this role is to be able to help people stand on their own 2 feet. They've learned the craft, they've learned how their body works. But if they enjoy working with you, they won't leave. And I know a lot of PTs that have had clients for years. Marcus, I'm pretty sure you've still got clients that you probably started working with. I know that one of my mates, Alan, fantastic PT, works up in Manchester way. And he's got clients he's had for like 5-6 years. And I've had clients that have stayed with me for a couple of years. They know what to do. They just enjoy the process. They enjoy the rapport. They enjoy the banter, and they like the little change things. But yeah, I think for social media, it's massive with the ego, because I've seen it. It's just ridiculous. We'll go back to these before and after pictures, and I've genuinely seen. I'm not, sort of like just saying this is just women PTs, but I've seen before and after pictures where the before picture didn't look that great, and then the after, they're wearing Ann Summers lingerie. Like, how does that? What is that? Like, what is that about? Like, it's unfortunate, because it's like, sex sells, and obviously that's going to attract more female clients to that PT, because they're going to think, well, I want to look like that. And I was like, well, of course you would. Everyone, but you can't advertise like that. It's just not perfect. It's just ego, isn't it? It's one of them things where it's like, I can get this woman to look like this, so all the clients need to. It is crazy. But I think when you've got someone who's really established and well thought after, I think they don't have that as much.
Yeah, and I think it says asking for help as well is just as important, isn't it? Giving help. Like if you're struggling in a certain area, and I'd be the first person to ask you, Jamie, if I was struggling in a certain area. Do you know what I mean? Like, and if I want to better my own education, I think some people might be underconfident to think that, well, I don't want them to think that I am not as educated as I'm coming across as, if that makes sense.
That's downfall, isn't it? At the end of the day, like if you don't have enough, if your pride is too much to ask someone for help, then you're never going to make yourself better.
Yeah. Is there anything else we can touch on?
Get the list up.
You got a list, mate.
Jamie's not done. Jamie's not done.
I'm done. I'm not done yet. I was going to slag them off now. I was kidding. No. What nutrition side? I think this is important because I know, Marcus, you've been on a few seminars with this, with the psychology of nutrition and people's unhealthy relationships with food. And I think it's the primary thing. Anyone can exercise, anyone can go in the gym, do an hour. If you've had a good day, you feel great, you go to the gym, you lift some heavy weights, that's negligible. The nutrition psychology of being able to get somebody to maintain that, I want to say motivation, because everyone's got motivation over like 4 to 6 weeks. As soon as you start with a PT, and I'm sure you boys have seen it, is, yeah, that's great, I'm going to hit the weights, I've been doing this. But then that motivation dissipates, it goes. How can they maintain that discipline, but then maintain that that healthy nutrition psychology? And I know that it's a thing that you've been looking at. So I'll ask you that.
Well, especially like what Matt was saying before is like, I definitely with a client that's just coming for the first time, if they've never had like a background in like you say in training or anything, I'm not exactly going to set the macros for them to go on the next week after, because that is just impossible. I can't expect them to do that. So I like to look at the habits and what they're doing day to day, because I think if we can change one thing a week for like the first week, then that's a big win, or one thing a day, a big win. So let's say, for instance, a client, she always goes to Starbucks in the morning. She has a flat white and a muffin, let's say. And let's say, well, don't stop going to Starbucks.
Mm-hmm.
Just have the muffin, just change it to an Americano, or take the muffin out, and have the flat white. Do you know what I mean? So I like to make little subtle changes like that at first, and I think the accountability aspect as well is you're not expecting too much out of your client, but then it's manageable, that they can see, yeah, this is doable. This is manageable. And then those small changes, they make up to a massive change. And then like, oh, you're doing 4,000 steps at the minute. Why don't you just do 4,500 or 5,000 steps? Like not expecting to do 15,000 steps when they're not doing that right now, because that is going completely out of their way. So I want to make it like bite-sized chunks. That's how. What about you,
Matt? I guess for me, I guess the first thing we need to say really is, if you suspect that your client has some issue with food, that you need to have the humility to say, right, this is out of my comfort zone. I personally don't have a referral network, but maybe go speak to your GP. That would be the first kind of. Because obviously, Jamie, you were saying about someone who potentially might have an issue with food, but I guess
I don't understand that. Sorry. Yes.
No, so I guess in your initial consultation form, you can almost screen some of those things out, like how often do you eat to the point of being uncomfortable? Do you ever feel guilty after eating food? You can kind of pick some of these things out in your consultation form, and then if you suspect it in the future, you can then say, right, perhaps I'm not the right person for this job. I can do your training, sure, but you need to go speak to this person. But in terms of how I like to go about things in terms of creating nutrition psychology, I guess it really does depend on the person. So again, ask them, how does tracking sound to you? How does taking a picture of your food sound to you? How does doing a diet diary sound to you? We need something. We need some information. Otherwise, we don't have a clue. I guess if we're looking at a kind of perfect scenario, I'd like to get someone tracking using something like Chronometer, find out, are they hitting all the nutrients and vitamins? Because let's say you've got a client who wants to lose weight, you're going to have to bring the calories down. And if they're already not hitting the macros and the vitamins, as soon as you bring the calories down, that's less opportunity to get those vitamins and minerals. You know what I mean? And it's only going to get less and less and less. So I guess, I mean, that wouldn't be for every single client. That would be almost like not a perfect scenario, but for someone who is 100% compliant and is looking to make some really good health and lifestyle changes. But touching upon what Marcus was saying, the habit and the kind of lifestyle route, I would say I would do with 70% of my clients.
Yeah, well, it's good because like what we're trying to get at is when you've got people that maybe like office workers, for example, right, and then you're trying to get into routine, it's, you know, for me, I've done it that long. Like when I've been teaching, obviously I've been teaching for like the last year, you go into the staff room and there'll be cakes and cookies and stuff like that that come out on a you know, the end of the week. Now, I'd be more than happy to have one or two, but I think that what me and Marcus went through, I think we went through unhealthy relationships with food. I know Marcus said when you went on holiday after we competed at the Universe, sorry, you competed, I didn't, obviously. I was in the child section for bodybuilding at that time, so I was still a junior. So, but I remember you saying that, you know, while you were on holiday, perfect time to sort of rebound and enjoy after all that hard work that you did, that you were getting up at 5 o'clock every morning doing your cardio, you were having no carbs, you were hard on yourself still. And I was the exact same. I was obsessed to the point that it was affecting relationships and friends and friendships and things. And I just missed out on a lot of stuff that was just not necessary. You were getting a healthy balance. So, but what you get off on the flip side of that is you get clients that will say like, well, if there's some cake that's coming out or like cookies in the office, people can't help themselves. And I think it's that ability is that, you know, if someone's had a crap day at work, which everyone does, that's life. You know, a lot of them say, oh, well, I had a crap day at work, so I had a bottle of wine, or I had a pizza, or I had a takeaway. And it's like, well, yeah, but how did you feel after that? Did you feel worse? Or did you actually feel happy? And most of the time, probably 90% of the time, they felt even worse for having it after than they did before. Now it's like, well, how can you, you know, we set those days where you can have a bit relaxed, because that's, again, life. And it's, you know, we're not trying to get them bodybuilding on stage. We're trying to get them to have a healthy lifestyle. And if you can say to them, it's like, listen, if you want a piece of cake, have a piece of cake. But later on, you know, just cut some food out, you know, maybe have some more salad, have some more greens, or maybe just do some more steps. Don't try and think, well, if I have half, you know, I've actually heard it, well, if I have half this Mars bar, it's half the calories. I'm like, no, it don't really work like that, you know. It's that, you know, so stop trying to justify why you should have it and just be like, well, actually, if I want it, I'll have it. But I'm just going to work hard at the same time. And it's sort of getting, because they think that as soon as you say diet, and I think this is important, people automatically assume restriction. If you say diet, people automatically assume restriction. But diet goes both ways. You know, you got, well, or three ways. Diet is to maintain. We've got a diet to lose, and we've got a diet to gain. So it's sort of putting that point across to your client and saying, right, well, when you're struggling, if you're having a bad day and you always resort to X food, well, tell you what, let's have a look at the options. We've got the food that you were going to eat, and we've got the food that you didn't want to eat. Well, if you eat the food that you had planned anyway, you know, the healthy meal, you're going to feel better for making the right choice. And you're also going to think, you know what, I'm stronger than I was yesterday because I didn't do that last time. And I mean, that's a win.
Yeah. I think on top of that, I think the importance is if they did have the bad meal, so fucking what? You know what I mean? It's understanding like the overall kind of big picture. Like, oh yeah, you've got two options, haven't you? You can almost, let's say for example that you teach your clients almost like a weekly calorie target. If, for example, that on a Monday they have a really high calorie day, you can then say, oh, right, maybe we just need to back off on these other days. And we just focus on getting back on track the following day instead of thinking, oh, you know what, I fucked up on Monday. That's it now. I've messed up.
Next month.
Yeah, exactly. Or alternatively, you might think, oh, actually, I know on Saturday I've got a wedding and I'm going to allocate 3,000 calories for this day. I mean, you're not going to know exactly how many calories you're going to have, but then you might think, right, 3,000 calories minus 14,000, which is my weekly calorie target, minus 3,000. I've got 11,000 left. Divide that by 6. Okay, let's have a bit more flexibility with my nutrition across the week. It goes both ways, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And like Jamie was saying before, like as soon as the word diet comes out of your mouth, people, well, general population, they automatically assume punishment, and the body can only take punishment for so long, can't it? You've got to make it bite-sized one. You've got to make it sustainable, haven't you? Really?
Yeah.
I think the key to that is trying to find out what foods they enjoy. So say if they like burgers, you know, who doesn't? You know, if you like burgers or if you like chili, well, we can make healthy options of that. We can make better options for that. And it's like, well, you don't actually, you know, when you get them to try it, they think, well, actually, this is all right. It's like, yeah, but what do you expect? I'm not going to give you chicken and broccoli. I'm not just going to give, that's too old school. That's too extreme. It's not real life. And I think that's the important part of it. I think too many PTs at the moment, or when you're just starting, I'm not going to say too many because I think that's false. I think that the very experienced PTs meet in the middle with their clients. They tell them what foods they like to eat. And then we think, right, well, let's look at alternatives. Let's control the portion size to what's realistic. And we get lower fat options. We get a lower GI option for the carbs. And we make it enjoyable. You know, there's nothing wrong with having a bit of sauce on your food. You know, we're not trying to get them on stage. And I think that's the difference, isn't it? People think they're going to try and get them on a bikini stage, and it's just not feasible.
I think as well, like letting them have an active role in the decision making. So what do you think about your nutrition this week? How can we make it better? What do you think? Why was your nutrition a 6 out of 10 and not an 8 out of 10? And they're giving you reasons, you know what I mean?
They're answering their own question.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. Because people are more likely to make the behavior change if they've come to the answer themselves, as opposed to you just telling them.
Yeah. That's a big one that I use with my clients. When, like you're saying, if people are seeing their macros as a day-to-day thing, and if they go over it, it's the end of the world sometimes. And then you've got to think, well, no, it's a rolling 7-day thing. Like think of your macros as the 7 days rather than the one specific day, and then it seems a lot less destructive.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you very much. If there's anything that you want to touch on.
Nope, covered everything, really, without offending anyone.
If anyone wants to get in contact with you for any reason, any nudes, you know, where can they hit you up?
You can find me on Instagram at Beenham. Email me at Mathew@universalstrength.com.
And Jamie?
Follow my Instagram page at JWSF PT, I think it is. So while I'm not doing a PGC course, I'll try and get back to anyone as quick as I can.
Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for taking your time out of your days.
Anytime.
Thanks a lot.
Stay on the line, don't go anywhere. Thanks, guys.
See you later.